Coach Barwis, very much appreciate your making some time for us today.
No problem, brother.
Well, I'm going to get right to the meat of it.
Okay.
You're bringing this new approach to strength and conditioning to Michigan football. What can the fans expect to see on the field next season, particularly, say, late in the game?
You know, the guys have worked really hard. They've done everything we've asked them to do. They've worked a lot on their speed. They've worked a lot on their conditioning. They changed their bodies dramatically. They've gotten a lot stronger, a lot more explosive, and been very dedicated to the transition. Done everything we've asked them to do, and as an end result, you know, they're performing well conditioning wise, and are very physical out there. You know, hopefully it'll translate to the game, and we'll be able to outlast teams and hopefully be a little more physical than the opponent.
All right. Well, as a former victim of Marine Corps boot camp myself, I got to say I have an appreciation for someone who knows how to motivate. There's a difference between just yelling at someone who's exhausted, hey, give me one more, and knowing how to sort of not just push all the time, but sort of coax as well. What's your theory? What's your approach to that, to motivate people?
You know, motivation is a key to what we do, no question. We have to understand the science. We have to be able to apply the science, but we have to be able to take people where they don't want to go or where they're not able to push themselves. And being able to drive somebody when they're wore out, they're tired, they're beat down, and give them that physical edge or that mental edge to let them take themselves to that physical place is a key to what we do. I think, you know, there's times that sticking your foot in somebody's rear end and turning it sideways is very important. There's other times that, you know, making sure that you understand your kids and if he needs a little coercion or a little help in his life or just somebody to talk to, you got to be there to do that too. And the primary role that you have to take on is someone who cares about your kids. You know, I mean, each one of these kids is like a son to me. You know, I'd do anything in the world for them. I'd do anything to help them. At the same time, I'm going to demand a lot of them just like I would my own son. And I think knowing that you're willing to go to any length to make sure you help these kids allows them to have that same commitment or conviction with you, so that they're willing to go to any length to help you. And I think sometimes when you get into a situation, it's easier to fight when somebody's watching and you don't want to let them down than it is when nobody's watching and it's just you.
Mm-hmm. Would you say then that your activities and your goals towards strength and conditioning are focused not just on the field, but it sounds like some of this is some life lessons you're trying to work in there?
You know, I tell them all the time, your training has to transcend your lifestyle. If you want to be the best at what you do, you got to be the best at everything you do. You can't come out and half put your heart into anything you do in this life. And if we do that, then we're going to be great in life. We're going to be great fathers. We're going to be great, husbands. We're going to be great athletes. We're going to be great in the training aspect. And I think that's a key component, knowing that no matter what we do, we're going to be committed to it. We're going to go as hard as we can go. We're going to give it everything we have. And there are no shortcuts, because when we take shortcuts in one area, it's easier to take shortcuts in another, and then alleviating those shortcuts in your life doesn't give you that option. You know, when you get into a situation that's a tough situation, it's usually where we find out the root of what a person is. And I think that the more we're subjected to an environment where shortcuts are not an option, in those tough situations, there is no answer but to go hard.
All right, well, let me get back to some nuts and bolts for just a second, Coach. We're speaking with strength and conditioning coach Mike Barwis from the University of Michigan football program. And, well, maybe you've heard the expression that a little knowledge is more dangerous than no knowledge, because you think you know it all. Well, I know a little bit about weight training myself, very little, but I just can't seem to keep track of fast twitch versus slow twitch muscle fibers. I was wondering if you might refresh my memory on that a little bit, how you train differently for each one, and how those are appropriate for different positions on the field.
Well, we all have a number of muscle fibers, either fast twitch or slow twitch, that, you know, they think we've genetically been predetermined to have. The key is, what do we train? There's a law of medicine, Wolff's law. The body conforms and adapts to the intensities and directions it's habitually subjected to. So what does that mean? Essentially what that means is, if I habitually subject myself to slow actions or utilize slow twitch muscle fibers, those are the fibers I recruit. My body will learn or will adapt to utilizing those fibers more readily in movements. When we look at the change of environment, if we're looking at explosive type exercises or fast twitch exercises, things like cleans, plyometrics, speed drill components that require the body to fire at an accelerated rate of speed, utilizing its power output, we generate or utilize more fast twitch fibers, which allows us to in turn start to recruit more of the fibers that we have that are fast twitch to elicit our contractions. And essentially what we're looking for is to try and recruit as many of those as possible. You may have arbitrary number, 100,000 fast twitch fibers, just kind of making it basic, an arbitrary number. You may only recruit 50,000 of them if you're training with slow twitch actions. The idea is to try and get us to recruit 100,000 of them every time we fire, in about as layman's terms as you can make it. So the key is to make our athletes explosive as possible. When you're looking at speed positions, most of the positions are dominated, or skill positions are dominated by power-related activities. Power is work done over time, or a given load and a given distance that it has to move, and the time that it takes to move it. The shorter period of time on that given load, the greater the power output. That is, your receiver, your running back, all of the skill positions, your DBs. When you look at a line, it has more force-dominated positions, so it's mass times acceleration. Looking at the loading component of pure mass, you have to have some size in that position, no question. But the key is to be able to accelerate that size to its optimal speed, or utilize that size in an explosive fashion. When we look at that, if we're carrying excess body fat or a load, it's like taking a 50-pound sandbag, putting it on your back, and trying to explode coming off the line. The problem is you can generate force, but not enough to overcome the body weight, so that your body actually slows down in its action. So looking at the movement progressions, with the key, most of what happens in football is an explosive environment, especially the way Coach Rodriguez runs his offense. It's a very, very explosive environment. The athletes are forced to act in explosive fashions and generate large amounts of force in those fashions in short periods of time. So power output becomes very relevant, and the training has to emulate that, so that the habitual adaptations that take place in the body give us that result.
Well, it sure sounds like it's come a long way from playing dodgeball in phys ed class. It sounds, what you're saying is as precise as like an engineering schematic. How meticulous are you about each player's individual program for targeting specific needs on each player?
Every single program is written individually for every single athlete. We look at adaptations that take place, weaknesses, strength, how they adapt versus how another person adapts. If I took my genetics and we did a training program for me, and the same training program was given to 5 of these guys, I'd be holding them all back. They have better genetics than I do. So the key is to try and elicit results that will attain their potential instead of my potential. So the adaptation of individual workouts is imperative to take each individual guy to his potential physiologically, and also to eliminate every weakness that athlete may have. So for 120 guys, there's 120 phases written specifically for the way his physiology adapts versus the way mine does, and the necessities of his given position and the actions or weaknesses that he may have.
Mentioning phys ed class a minute ago just brought this thought to mind. Just a quick sort of detour. I just want to get your opinion on something somewhat off topic here, but we talked about phys ed class. What, in your opinion, is the state of, say, phys ed class, in our school systems today? I mean, are our kids' needs for learning these things about, like, nutrition and things that are going to stick with them for life, about eating healthy and being active, do you think, being served well by our current programs, or what sort of improvements, if you were suddenly in charge of phys ed across the country, what kind of changes would you want to make for our kids today, who are, some are a little bit obese?
When we were younger, phys ed was a larger part of the curriculum, I think, in schools, elementary school, intermediate school, and high school. And I think as time's going on, for budget constraints and for time for academics, we've taken away a lot of the physical activities that kids have, and we've reduced the involvement of physical activity in our lives. And because of that, we have a largely obese country. People are out of shape, they're unhealthy, and the work environment suffers, and the home environment suffers because of that. And I think that that we definitely need to improve our knowledge of obviously nutrition, our knowledge of conditioning, our knowledge of all aspects of physiology in the body, so that we understand the grave effects it has on our health as well as our performance in this life. And I think by doing so and understanding, the first process being education, then trying to increase that activity and incorporate an environment in schools that allows people to excel both mentally and physically instead of just mentally, is going to make a large impact on the people in this country.